Kushi joins a goddess dormitory and claps them. Kushi Nagumo's just a 12-year-old kid. One day, when he got back from school, his house was on fire, and guess what? It was his dad who started it. But instead of sticking around to sort things out, Kushi's dad, well, he ran away, leaving Kushi all by himself. So there he was, this 12-year-old Kushi, all alone and homeless. He wandered around the city of thorns, trying to make sense of things. Life was tough, especially for a kid like him. No home, no food, nada. One day, he was so hungry that he just passed out right there in the middle of the street. Lucky for him, this college girl with green hair named Minoru showed up. She told him she was a researcher. Minoru could see that Kushi was in a real pickle, so she took him to her place, her dormitory. And let me tell you, she whipped up a tasty meal for him. Kushi couldn't believe his luck. After gobbling down his grub, he was feeling pretty good. Minoru told him he could use the bathroom to freshen up. Kushi was thrilled, and he sprinted to the bathroom. But when he swung the door open, surprise. There were 3 girls in there, Serene, Kiria, and Frey. They lived in the same dorm as Minoru. Kushi was beyond embarrassed. He beat a hasty retreat out of there. But then, bam, he bumped into Atina, a girl with pink hair, who was also part of the dorm crew. They had a little collision and ended up on the ground, and Kushi's face, well, it was in a rather awkward spot. Atina, she got a nosebleed and fainted right then and there. The other 3 girls, they couldn't believe how quick Kushi was to end up in such a situation. On that very first day, Kushi got to meet the gang from the goddess dormitory at the women's university. There's Minoru, a big shot 4th-year student who's holding down the fort as the temporary dorm supervisor. Then, there's Kiria, a tough cookie in her 2nd year who's been into martial arts since forever. Frey, she's a 3rd-year student, and she's all about cosplaying and making snazzy costumes. Atina, she's a fresh 1st-year student. And here's the kicker, she's got this thing where she only talks to girls and gets nosebleeds around guys. Last but not least, Serene, the quiet one who's been on Earth so long. She can't even remember when she got here. She's kinda quirky too. After a bit, Kushi spills the beans to the girls about his tough situation. Atina's still in her room, recovering from her little nosebleed incident. Kushi lays it all out, no money, no family, and no place to crash. He tells them he's itching to go back to school, but the cash situation's got him stuck. That's when Minoru steps up with a brilliant idea. She suggests they hire him as the dorm supervisor since they didn't have one officially. Kushi's eyes light up when he hears this plan. He's all in, no second thoughts. He's ready to jump on board and start working right away. The other girls are on board too. They'd love to have an official supervisor to help out. There's just one little hiccup. Atina, her room's the next stop for the news. They're hoping she'll change her tune once she hears Kushi's story. But boy, did they get a surprise. Atina's not having it. She's putting her foot down real hard. See, she's always been surrounded by girls ever since she was a wee thing. All girls schools, all women family, the whole deal. She ain't about to change that now. If Kushi's gonna work there, she's making a run for it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Kushi's scratching his head, trying to figure out why Atina's so dead set against it. She packs up her stuff and bolts out the door while the rest just watch her go. Minoru filled Kushi in on Atina's situation. You see, Atina had never really hung out with boys before. The first time she did, it was a bit of an accident. She walked in on her roommate and her boyfriend clapping. That was enough to make her feel all weird inside. She got a nosebleed and passed out. Ever since then, she's been super uneasy around guys. Minoru, thinking she could help Atina get over her fear, decided to hire a boy as a supervisor. But here's the thing, it didn't work. Atina got even more scared, and nothing got better. Kushi, even though he couldn't wrap his head around why Atina was so scared, didn't want to take someone else's home away. He knew what it was like to be without a place to stay and going hungry. So, he dashed after Atina as she was walking away. He caught up with her and had a chat. He convinced her to head back to the dorm. After all, it was her home. He promised he'd figure something out for himself. Atina went back to the dorm, but Kushi, he was back on the streets again. He turned down a job that could have given him a home and put him back in school, all because he didn't want Atina to suffer. His life stayed tough. He found a spot in the park to crash for the night, all cold and alone. While Atina was heading back to the dorm, she remembered what Minoru had said about Kushi's house burning down. It hit her right in the feels. She realized Kushi was a real selfless guy, giving up a chance for a better life just so Atina didn't have to be homeless. And lucky for Kushi, who had nodded off in the park, Atina showed up to rescue him. She hoisted him on her back and took him back to the door. When he woke up, he felt her warmth and caught a whiff of her pleasant scent. As Kushi reached out his hand, he accidentally touched something. Turns out, it was Atina's plot armor. And just like that, Atina got a nosebleed and passed out right there. So, now Kushi had to carry her back to the dorm. But here's the twist, Atina, she finally accepted Kushi working there. She was trying to be brave and help Kushi out too. The very next day, Kushi was all excited to start his new job. But guess what? The dorm was a total mess except for Atina's room, which was spotless. Kushi decided to start cleaning up Minoru's room first. He knocked on her door and guess what she was wearing? Just a shirt that showed a bit more than it should. Kushi's face turned as red as a tomato when he saw that and asked her why she's dressed like that. Minoru told him it was for convenience, like it helped her work better or something. Kushi, all flustered, said he'd wait outside until she was done changing and quickly walked away. But then, out of nowhere, a hand reached out and yanked Kushi into Frey's room as he was passing by. Frey, she's all about cosplay, and she saw a golden chance to dress Kushi up. She insisted he try on this maid uniform thing because it was part of the job, you know? She didn't mind helping anyone, boy or girl, find the right outfit. While he's stuck in that maid outfit, Frey springs another request on Kushi. She wants him to measure her plot armor's 3 important stats. He couldn't really say no, it was part of the job, right? But man, he was so uncomfortable and red as a tomato. As he was trying to do this awkward task, he accidentally lost his balance and tumbled. And guess what? Frey tumbled right on top of him. Right in the middle of this mess, Minoru busts into the room like lightning. She's in a major hurry and tells everyone to get out of the dorm ASAP. Something had gone really wrong with one of her experiments, and toxic gas was taking over the place. All 3 of them dash outside, and Kushi's super worried. He realizes that these girls, they're usually all chill about stuff, like they don't think about what happens next. So, he gives them a little lecture about being more careful. But then, he realizes maybe he was a bit too harsh since they're older than him. So, he says sorry real quick before hightailing it out of there. Minoru, she actually appreciated it. She thought Kushi was pretty responsible for calling her out on her actions. She gave him some respect for that. Kushi's still strolling down on the street in Frey's maid getup, and let's just say he's getting quite the attention. But he's a pro at this street life, and he manages to score a blanket for the girls. See, it's cold outside, and both Minoru and Frey were in no shape to deal with the chilly weather. That blanket came in handy while they waited for the gas mess to clear up. As the only boy and kinda like the dorm mom, Kushi felt like it was his job to keep the girls safe and warm. But then, out of the blue, Frey and Minoru come rushing up and give him a big ol' hug. Seems innocent, right? Well, not quite. Unfortunately, Atina saw this whole scene go down. And that caused her to have one of her famous nosebleeds and faint right there on the spot. Late at night, Kushi was sleeping all peacefully when he got jolted awake by some crazy noise coming from above his room. It was like someone stomping on the ceiling, you know? And then, whoa. The ceiling just gave up the ghost, and guess who came crashing through? It was Kiria, and she got stuck, like, couldn't climb back up or anything. So, her only choice was to crash down into Kushi's room. Kushi, being the good guy he is, tried to help break her fall. He rushed over to her, but here's where things got super awkward. They, like, collided in midair, and Kiria ended up landing right on top of him. Now, Kushi's all puzzled and stuff, but he's had something like this happen before, so he starts looking around. And guess what he spots nearby? It's a book, and Kiria's trying to hide it, looking all shy and stuff. Turns out, that book was super special to her. It was the very first book she bought when she started at the university. Back then, she had no idea there was a whole sweet and bright world waiting for her in those pages. See, she'd grown up in her family's dojo, always fighting and stuff. So, when she got her hands on that romance book, it made her feel all soft inside, and she got totally sucked into it. But here's the kicker, when she was reading, sometimes she'd get so worked up and emotional that she'd, like, lunge at the wall and punch it, you know, just to let out all that pent-up feeling. In that moment, Kushi figures out why Kiria broke the ceiling. She's a shy girl who's all into mushy romance books and sometimes punches stuff when she's super emotional. Kiria says sorry for the hole and asks if she can sleep in Kushi's room cause she's afraid she might fall through her own ceiling. Kushi's kinda wondering why she's cool with sharing a room with a boy, but then he gets it. She's used to it cause she's got little brothers back home. So, Kushi's like, alright, we can share. But when the lights go out, Kiria tries to have a deep chat with him. She tells him that whenever she looks at him, she thinks about her younger siblings she used to spar with in the dojo. She's just trying to sleep, but Kiria misses her sparring sessions with her bros so much that she goes all out and attacks him, like they're in a big fight. It gets so wild he thinks he's in some serious danger, but he doesn't get too hung up on it cause he's realized the girls in the dorm are a special bunch. They've all got their own styles, and they're all pretty, so he tells Kiria, even though he reminds her of her siblings, he's just a regular boy. He hopes she gets that right out.